give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Ramadan Abdullah Mohammed Jok, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of South Sudan.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the Security Council, Excellencies, Ministers of Foreign Affairs invited to attend this gathering. Mr. President, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate you for assuming the presidency of the Council for the month of January, and I assure you of my country's full support and cooperation. I would also like to appreciate Ms. Amina Mohammed, the Deputy Secretary General, Ambassador Bankole, the African Union Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, and Ambassador Said, the Senior Advisor to the African Center for Constructive Resolution of Conflict for their brief. Mr. President, South Sudan is honored to address this esteemed Council on the crucial matter of strengthening African leadership in counterterrorism and advancing sustainable peace and security on our continent. Today, terrorism and transnational organized crime threaten not only African stability, but also global peace. As such, addressing these challenges must be a collective priority, one that respects and enhances African ownership, leadership, and solution. Allow me to raise the following points. Mr. President, the African Union, as a member state, are at the forefront of the fight against terrorism in Africa. However, African leadership can only succeed with unwavering support of the international community, particularly this Council. We urge the Security Council to reinforce its partnership with the African Union and Chapter 8 of the UN Charter. This means not only endorsing African-led peace operation, but also ensuring these missions are guided by African expertise and local knowledge. Africa does not need solutions imposed from outside, but partnership that recognize and support our capability to solve our own challenges. Mr. President, members of the Council, a critical gap in Africa counterterrorism efforts lay in sustainable and predictable funding. Issue of funding is very paramount in this. South Sudan call on this Council to support mechanisms that ensure direct and reliable financial resources for African peace operation. This includes incorporating African-led mission into UN-assessed contribution. Additionally, innovative financing mechanisms such as leveraging natural resource revenue, engaging international financial institutions, and fostering private sector contribution must be explored. Only with consistent funding can we sustain the fight against terrorism while addressing its root cause. Mr. President, socioeconomic development is fundamental to counter-terrorism. Extremist groups thrive in an environment where poverty, unemployment, and inequality persist. Agenda of 2063 of the African Union Vision for Peaceful and Prosperous Africa underscore the importance of addressing these root causes. South Sudan call on this Council to support development initiatives and prioritize education, infrastructure, youth employment, and empowerment of women. By investing in our people and providing hope for a better future, we reduce the vulnerability of our communities to extremist ideologies. Mr. President, a strengthened collaboration between the United Nations and the African mechanism such as Nouakchott process and Accra initiative is vital. South Sudan recommend regular joint consultation, information sharing, and capacity building program to improve coordination and effectiveness. Furthermore, integrated strategies should be developed to address cross-border terrorism and organized crime with a focus on empowering regional mechanisms to respond rapidly to emerging threats. Mr. President, distinguished delegates, South Sudan recognizes the significant role of transnational organized crime in financing terrorism, whether through illicit financial flow, drug trafficking, or arms smuggling. We call on this Council to support African states in strengthening their financial intelligence system and border security framework. Regional cooperation and technical support from international partners are essential to disrupt these networks. A robust legal framework and capacity building initiative must be prioritized to prevent funds from reaching terrorist organizations and groups. Mr. President, African states must be given the tools and freedom to fulfill their mandate to protect their citizens. Sanctions and arms embargoes often restrict the ability of the African nation to respond effectively to the security threats. South Sudan call on this Council to lift the arms embargoes and targeted sanctions imposed on our country. Act of terrorism has been a story of South Sudanese during their struggle days, but last week we have seen a live act of terrorism by the inhuman killing of innocent South Sudanese in Sudan when the Sudanese army and their allied group took over Medani. South Sudanese were brutally killed, and we thank the African Union and the chairperson of East Africa Community, IGAD, for their condemnation of what happened to our people, and we call upon the Security Council to join us in our call for the investigation on the killing of our South Sudanese people in Sudan. Our president also, he described what happened to our people as act of terror, and he called for investigation. We call also on the UN Security Council to join us in our call. For this reason, it is imperative to adopt a more flexible and supportive approach, one that recognizes the unique challenges African states face and prioritize capacity building over restrictions. To conclude, Mr. President, South Sudan firmly believes that addressing terrorism and organized crime in Africa requires a holistic and African-led approach, one that integrates security, development, and governance. We call on the Security Council to honor its commitment to supporting African leadership, respecting our sovereignty, and fostering meaningful partnership. Together we can ensure that Africa achieve its vision of a peaceful, prosperous, and integrated continent in line with Agenda 2033. Let us act with urgency and unity to confront these shared challenges and build a future where Africa is not only resilient but also a beacon of peace and prosperity. I thank you for your kind attention.
I thank